Traditional friends, Sri Lanka and Pakistan has been long-term diplomatic relations, cultural relations, and of course here in Colombo, we are joined by the Foreign Minister of Pakistan who's visiting in Sri Lanka on a two-day official visit. Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi, a warm welcome to Hyde Park and thank you for honoring us with your presence here.
Thank you.
Pakistan has been a friend indeed to Sri Lanka, especially during UNHRC sessions. We've seen this. With the new president, with the new authority in power in Sri Lanka, what kind of sentiment does Pakistan have?
Well, we are very happy to see a very successful and a very peaceful democratic process go through and a new president being elected. Now you have a government in place. The Prime Minister in office, and we have a lot of expectations from this present setup because they know Pakistan. They know what Pakistan stands for. They've had connections with Pakistan. The Prime Minister in his 2 terms as president has dealt with Pakistan and has helped develop a stronger bilateral relationship between Sri Lanka and Pakistan. The president has, in his younger days, as a young military officer, been trained in our military institutions. So he has goodwill, he has connections, and is known in Pakistan. So we expect this government to take our bilateral relations to a new level and avail the offers that Pakistan has made. For example, we had a credit line available for Sri Lanka, $200 million. It was lying there unavailed. We have 1,000 scholarships waiting for you in Pakistan. Use them, you know. So we have a lot of goodwill. We have worked together. We've supported each other in difficult times, and I'm here to extend an invitation to the Foreign Minister, to the Prime Minister, and to the President. And what I'm saying is, let's build on what we have. What we have is political goodwill. What we have is trust and confidence. Let's convert this goodwill into an economic relationship that is mutually beneficial.
How do you term your meetings with your Sri Lankan counterpart and also other high-ranging officials?
Excellent. My meeting at the Foreign Office was very good. We had an extended meeting. We went through all the areas of interest between Sri Lanka and Pakistan, one by one. And the beauty of our interaction was, since there's trust and confidence, the discussions were frank and candid and honest. You know, there was no hesitation, there was no reluctance, there was no fear of double speaking, right? And that is important, and that's the strength of our relationship.
Does this mean the Pakistani political authority has fresh interest in Sri Lanka, or the political authority in Sri Lanka? Is there renewed encouragement for stronger relations between the two nations?
Absolutely. We think Sri Lanka and Pakistan have a lot to offer to each other. For example, tourism is your strength, and we as a country are opening up to tourism as the security situation in Pakistan has improved, as we as a government have liberalized our visa regime. We want to learn from the Sri Lankan experience and promote tourism in Pakistan. We feel that Pakistan can contribute to Sri Lankan economic development through investments in the cement sector, in the sugar sector, in the housing sector. We feel that we can contribute to your socio-economic development through our service sector, right? And we can both promote regional peace and stability by dealing with the menace of terrorism. We can have in place a mechanism which will check drugs, which is a growing regional global challenge. So there's a lot that can be done. The political will on our side is there, and with the new setup over here, I'm expecting a warmer response.
Foreign Minister Qureshi, also if I may divert my attention to terrorism and extremism, Sri Lanka has been battered for 3 decades, and again in April we faced a fresh form of terrorism, extremism that Sri Lanka was not open to, but world over we had seen that. But Pakistan too is a nation that has been battered for years. But how do we look at the two countries working together, especially because there have been allegations of training camps in certain areas? And how do we look at bringing resources of both nations together, especially to eliminate this new form of extremism that has also taken the lives of youth and women and children?
Definitely, as you said, both have suffered on account of terrorism. We've paid a huge price. We've had close to 70,000 casualties. You know, we've had lost decades on account of lost opportunities, economic opportunities on account of terrorism. But the resolve and the resilience shown by the people of Pakistan and people of Sri Lanka is a case in point that both nations fought terrorism and defeated terrorism. And now we're in the process of reversing extremism. Pakistan will do its utmost, and I discussed with the President how we can, under the new approach, under the new narrative that we've built, and we've decided to put away the distorted version, you know, propagated by some of our neighbors, your neighbors, our neighbors, in which they distort the image of Islam to their ends and associate a religion of peace to terrorism, which is absolute nonsense. The new narrative, I shared the new narrative, and the ulama of the region and Pakistan in particular have said, you know, there's no justification of taking lives. I mean, nowhere would Islam justify suicide bombings, you know, stuff like that. So we have developed that narrative. We're willing to share that narrative. We are willing to sit with Sri Lanka, and we are willing to have offered help in capacity building, in intelligence sharing, in training your personnel of, you know, your armed forces, your, you know, civilian institutions, because we have dealt with them in a very forceful and a very effective manner, and we would want friends to benefit from it.
With Sri Lanka and India, and especially India's interest in consolidating relations with Sri Lanka, with the new president coming to office, what is Pakistan's sentiment, especially with the kind of regional tensions that we see within our part of the world?
Well, you see, Sri Lanka is a sovereign country, and they have a right to have bilateral relations with anyone. And India is a neighbor to Sri Lanka, and we have no qualms with that. We have no issue with that. The difference is that Pakistan will only help. We have never dictated. We've never interfered in your internal affairs. We have never instigated trouble in Sri Lanka. I'm not sure of others.
Foreign Minister Qureshi, also talking about India, Pakistan, we know the issue of Kashmir, which has received a lot of international attention, a lot of concern within the region. Does this mean Pakistan will seek Sri Lanka's interference or involvement in addressing this issue, or going forward to find a mutually beneficial resolution?
Well, I briefed the Foreign Minister on the latest, I updated him on the latest situation in Indian-occupied Jammu and Kashmir, the atrocities, the human rights abuse that is taking place, the continuous curfew, 120 days of continuous curfew, day and night, children deprived of schooling, sick not being able to reach hospitals, pregnant women suffering, patients with dialysis not being able to get treatment. Somebody's suffering a heart attack, and ambulance not being there to take the patient to the hospital. Religious clampdown, mosques shut, people are not allowed to pray, and they claim to be a secular state with religious freedoms. Internet service suspended. All basic rights suspended. What kind of a democracy is that? And the status of the state done away with. They've done away with their identity, they've done away with their constitution, they've done away with their flag, and the result is that you have never seen Kashmiris more alienated as they are today. Kashmiri leadership, that was an engagement with India, that formed coalition governments in the Indian occupied Kashmir, are not even willing to sit with them. The question is why? Why has the youth revolted? Why is there a political movement? And if they feel that they've done it for the betterment of Kashmiris, as they call it, for their socio-economic development, then why should you clamp a curfew? If you've done it for my betterment, then I should be very happy. I should receive you with a garland. Why were opposition delegations turned away from the from Srinagar airport? Why are journalists like you, independent people, not allowed to enter the state? Why was Senator Chris Van Hollen, who wanted to go to Srinagar and wanted to go to Muzaffarabad, denied access to Srinagar and was welcomed in Muzaffarabad, right? Why is the European Union debating this issue, human rights abuse? Why is the US Congress for the first time concerned about human rights violations today? Why have members of the House of Commons written to the Secretary General of the UN? These are questions that need to be pondered over.
Are you also alluding to the fact that the international community has not done enough, sufficient measures taken to address this issue on Pakistan's behalf, or on behalf of Kashmir, on behalf of the people of this region whose human rights have been violated? And also, Foreign Minister, I'd also like to ask you how you see Sri Lanka's efforts in this regard, because Pakistan has stood up for Sri Lanka.
No, what I'm saying is Sri Lanka should just highlight what facts are. We would want Sri Lanka to speak up for human rights, against human rights abuse. Every self-respecting nation and democracy should do that, and you're a democracy, and we expect that from you. The international community has, their response has been somewhat muted for, I would say, considerations, for economic considerations. They consider India to be a huge market. They have investments in India, and they feel that they know what the reality is. They know what's going on. Yet they feel that they don't want to be as outspoken as they should have been. Had some other country done this, they'd have taken that country to town. So these double standards are becoming obvious, and people will speak up. And nations that believe in human rights, that believe in fundamental rights, they do not have the luxury of choice. They either have to stand for the right or stop, sort of those tall claims.
Moving on to regional geopolitics, Foreign Minister, India and China is seeking an increased presence in Sri Lanka. China's economic corridor with Pakistan too, that has raised a lot of concern in terms of China, a superpower, seeking inroads into the region. India is threatened. How does Pakistan look at it? And how do you look at Sri Lanka's response to managing these superpowers?
What surprises me is, why is India threatened? China has occupied no area. China has no designs of annexing an area. China's design is economic development. China's design is helping many countries like Pakistan, Sri Lanka, develop their infrastructure for their economic uplift. I traveled on this new motorway built by China from the airport to Colombo. I think it was a great service provided by the Chinese to Sri Lanka. Why should people be scared of that? China has no aggressive designs. Pakistan has no aggressive designs vis-a-vis Sri Lanka. We are friends and we want to undertake projects that are mutually beneficial. China has never interfered in Sri Lanka's internal affairs, whereas I leave the rest to your imagination.
Foreign Minister, SHAH has been a massive question for not just the region, but also outside the region, questioning the objectives of SHAH, how far SHAH has come since its inception. Your Prime Minister, Imran Khan, has he lost faith in this regional organization?
We could have attained a lot more than we have from this regional organization. The spirit behind this regional organization was good. Pakistan remained positively engaged with SHAH. Pakistan has never obstructed the growth of SHAH, whereas Indian history is in front of you. Why were they reluctant to come to Islamabad for the SHAH summit when it's clearly defined that bilateral issues will not be raised in SHAH? Even if we wanted to, we could not raise the Kashmir issue if the Indians were in Islamabad, but they blocked it. And this is not the first time. They've done it 5 times. They have issues with different neighbors, and because of their issues with their different neighbors, SHAH suffers. So now we in SHAH, countries like Sri Lanka, a country like Pakistan, should sit back and think, is India an obstacle to SHAH? Have they, even the Bengalis, Bangladesh should think about it, because originally the idea evolved from there. They should think about it. Are they contributing or are they obstructing intra-regional trade and connectivity? Today, India is the biggest impediment to regional connectivity and trade and growth and development.
With this being Asia's time, prosperity coming towards Asia, how do you think that the region can work towards bringing this economic prosperity to the people of South Asia through SHAH, or maybe a renewed or fresh idea that Pakistan may have in mind?
Well, you need a different mindset for that. Unfortunately, I do not see that mindset on the side of our eastern neighbor. Pakistan is opening up. The new economic corridor that we are sort of laying between China and Gwadar, it will not just benefit Pakistan, it will benefit the entire region. Just look at the development of the Gwadar port. It will not just service Pakistan, it will service landlocked Central Asian republics. It'll give them access to warm waters, to a port. It'll help their exports. So we are looking at things differently, and I hope the mindset, the dominant RSS Hindutva mindset is addressed within Delhi, and there's a lot of concern within India. There are lots and lots of people who are not comfortable with what the BJP government is advocating.
Are you saying a change of leadership is required for the region to look ahead?
I would say a change of heart is required. it's the approach. You know, it's not the person, it's the mindset, the mind and the thinking within the person that counts.
Also, Foreign Minister, China, as we talk more and more about China and China's presence in this region, is Pakistan also worried about concerns about China trying to entangle nations in a debt trap? This is a matter of concern for certain parties who look at Sri Lanka's involvement with China, Hambantota port, and our new president has said that the previous government's the deal with the Hambantota port will be revisited and will address certain negative clauses from the Sri Lankan side with renewed dialogue with China.
Well, as far as Pakistan is concerned, we are absolutely confident that we see no design behind the CPAC project. We don't think it's a debt trap that is being laid for us because we've looked at the total debt portfolio of the country and the portion of CPAC or the Chinese sort of input to our debt is minimal. You know, out of the $72 billion that we have, you know, the debt that we have, the Chinese component is just $4.9 billion. So you cannot be in a debt trap on account of $4.9 billion.
Coming back to Sri Lanka and Pakistan, I'd like to know what designs you have to foster greater economic prosperity and also for the existing free trade agreement to be more useful for the people of both nations.
We have a free trade agreement with Sri Lanka. In fact, it was the first free trade agreement Pakistan signed with any country. In fact, we have not made full use of it. What we sat and discussed today was how to make use of it. The framework is there. We need to utilize it. In order to utilize that, we need to get the two private sectors engaged. When I was talking to the Foreign Minister, I said, please, when you do come to Islamabad, bring a trade delegation with you. Bring businessmen and entrepreneurs who are dealing with Pakistan, who have trading interests in Pakistan, and I will collect through the Ministry of Commerce people who can interface with them, and let's develop partnerships. The governments can put frameworks in place. The private sectors have to take advantage of those mechanisms that are in place. We have not been able to fully utilize the mechanism in place. Time has come that we do it.
Do you think there is a potential to achieve the kind of expectations that you have discussed?
Absolutely. I think in the shortest possible time with just better understanding and interaction, bilateral trade between Sri Lanka and Pakistan can be doubled.
And what of investments? Are we looking at any interest from Pakistani entrepreneurs and businessmen for either joint ventures or maybe investments in Sri Lanka?
Investments we offer. There are good prospects for cement and sugar industry. Pakistani investors would be more than happy to come and invest here, gain from it, and Sri Lanka can prosper from it. So it's a mutually win-win situation. The ball is in your court. Avail it.
We've been talking about luring more investments and FDI to Sri Lanka, but the massive concern has been bureaucracy, red tape, and the lack of institutional that push within Sri Lanka. Has that been a concern for Pakistani investors?
The question is, who will change? Who will change? Who will cut the red tape? Political leadership. It's our job to do it. If there are impediments, let's sit and analyze those impediments and find a way out. It can be done. The world has done it. ASEAN has done it. European Union has done it. NAFTA has done it. Why can't we do it?
Let's talk a little about what you've discussed with your counterpart here also. You've invited him to visit Pakistan. Will we expect a visit from your Prime Minister to Sri Lanka? We're both great cricket-loving nations, and Sri Lanka would love to have your Prime Minister here.
Most certainly, he'll be more than happy to be in Sri Lanka. He has been here as an international sportsman. He's played in Sri Lanka. He's a very well-known face and a very well-known name in Sri Lanka, in fact, the world over. And yes, I would love that the Pakistani Prime Minister visits Sri Lanka. And let me, since we're talking about sports and cricket, let me thank the people of Sri Lanka and the government of Sri Lanka for, despite pressures and alerts, you were able to send your cricket team to Pakistan, and now your cricket team is coming again in December to play 2 test matches in Pakistan. We are looking forward to welcoming you, and thank you, Sri Lanka, for reviving international cricket in Pakistan. So we are touched by this gesture. It's gone a long way, and you have no idea what goodwill you have created by this gesture of yours. Another thing, I think, what I offered to the minister this morning was, what we have in Pakistan are treasures for Sri Lankans. The Buddhist heritage. It's full of historic sites, you know, that you would dream of. So send delegations, come over and see for yourself the treasures that Pakistan can offer. Come into our northern areas and see the beautiful mountains that we have, the beautiful north that we have. Believe you me, if we had the infrastructure, you know, I would call it, our north is the Switzerland of Asia. Come and see it.
I think you're also giving us a new perspective into what kind of cooperation we can have, especially when we have outsiders talking about Islamist extremism.
Any society, there's a fringe element. You know, you've seen terrorist attacks in the US by Americans, white Americans. You've seen terrorist attacks in Europe, in Spain, in France, in Italy, in Britain. So it's not just confined to a region or confined to a race or confined to a religion. No, that would be a wrong connotation to it. It's a menace, it's a state of mind that we collectively can defeat, and we will defeat, and we have to develop partnerships across the globe to deal with this menace. But when you come to Pakistan, Sri Lankans will see for themselves the goodwill amongst Pakistanis for Sri Lankans, and the warmth, the hospitality, the cordiality of Pakistanis. Seeing is believing. My experience is that Westerners that have been to Pakistan, you know, they come with certain notions, but having spent time in Pakistan, when they go back, they become ambassadors, they become advocates for Pakistan.
Foreign Minister, finally, if you can say a few words about how Sri Lanka, Pakistan can be in the forefront of fostering greater cultural relations between not just these two countries, but of the region as well, especially when you have so much of Western influence and from within countries, this resistance to Western interest.
You see, we are diverse societies. And there's a beauty in our diversity. We have not been able to promote regional tourism and regional interaction. There's a lot that we can offer to each other. You know, the West comes and takes advantage of that, and why not? And they should. But why can't we take advantage of that? Look at the look at the size of Asia. Look at the population of this region. If we started traveling, and we're connected, I'm just 3 hours away from you. That's not much, and the time difference is half an hour. So why can't you travel? And we are connected by air, right? There's connectivity, there's goodwill, there's so much to offer. We have not been able to avail that. We need to encourage our people to travel within the region. And if we start traveling within the region, believe you me, you won't, no room in your hotels will remain vacant.
Where do you see Sri Lanka? Everyone talks about Sri Lanka being a hub in the Indian Ocean, similar to Singapore, Dubai.
I see a lot of promise in Sri Lanka. That's why I'm the first foreign minister to visit you since the election. I think there is a lot Sri Lanka can offer, has to offer. There's a lot that Pakistan can and has to offer. Let Sri Lanka and Pakistan get into a partnership to promote the region.
On that note, I think it's time we wrap up. Thank you very much, Foreign Minister, for your sincerity and the goodwill from Pakistan.
Thank you.
We had with us the visiting Foreign Minister of Pakistan, Shah Mahmood Qureshi, joining us at Hyde Park to discuss more about Sri Lanka, Pakistan, and the way forward for SAARC and the region.